OK, but we'll move on to a story which is making... it seems to be gaining traction, particularly amongst the press, but in an interesting way, because clearly the Daily Mail, who have very good royal sources, are leading on this today. And it is of interest. I think it will annoy a great many people who can't get over it. In fact, so many of you got online straight away going, no, in that sort of slow motion way. And it's because there is really big news that Prince Harry wants to come back in some way to the UK and is beginning now to court advice from British advisors. In fact, as you were saying earlier, he apparently on WhatsApp has been getting hold of old friends who haven't heard from him in several years. But he's WhatsApping them, asking their advice, and apparently has either already taken on board a British PR company or is at least at the moment seeking advice to do that in a way to maybe very slowly rehabilitate himself and his image in the UK.
The question is that possible? Well, this major move is being branded as Operation Bring Harry In from the Cold, as he's allegedly growing dissatisfied from advice from American-based image experts.
Well, let's talk to the historian and author Martin Whittock, who joins us now. Martin, do you agree that actually it feels like we're being warmed up?
Yes, I think so. As you intimated just now, there's reports of them just not getting on well in the Californian exile. Reports of self-imposed exile, I should add. Reports of the couple having parted company with another American PR advisor. It seems this is the 10th staff member to have left the Sussexes in 3 months. In August, it was reported that their chief of staff had left after just 3 months. So clearly, things are not working out in the USA for the Sussexes as they originally planned. And interestingly, there are also reports that the King has discussed the matter with faith leaders, showing that he is open to some kind of reconciliation. But boy, this is going to be quite an ask and quite a journey after the turmoil and hurt over the past 4 years. And it's difficult to see exactly what the plan would be, although there's talk of low-key royal duties, starting from maybe some very, very non-public facing things, but basically a steep mountain to climb to win hearts and minds back of the public, let alone within the royal family. There's talk that William, Prince of Wales, and Harry are both due to be in New York this September on separate ventures, both environmentally connected. So there may be some kind of low-key connection there. But this is going to be an extremely long journey back after all the Sussexes have said and done over the last 4 years. Not an easy ask to come in from the cold in this particular case, I'm afraid.
Is reconciliation possible, do you think, Martin, not only with his father, not only with his brother, but also with the British public? Because looking at our views today, lots of people emailing in just saying it's too little too late. He's made his bed now and he's got to lie in it.
I think you've identified 3 main areas there, and they are crucial. Addressing them one at a time, I think it would be possible to seek reconciliation with his father. It's clear that King Charles is deeply distressed, understandably, by this rift within the family. I could see reconciliation taking place there, if slowly. It's harder to envisage it happening with William, Prince of Wales, obviously I mustn't speak for him, because the wounds there have gone very, very deep, and the kind of things that Harry has claimed there will clearly have wounded his brother greatly. With regard to the British public, well, that really is going to be, in some ways, the hardest ask of all, because from the enthusiasm which accompanied, in many quarters, the marriage of Harry and Meghan, what seem like light years ago, don't they? Such a long time ago, the fall in popularity because of the actions of the Sussexes, I think more than any other factor, has been quite precipitous. And I think the idea of building that trust with the British public again is going to take a very, very, very long time indeed, if in fact those burnt bridges can be rebuilt. So the King, I think, yes, that's possible. I think it's going to be very difficult with William, but boy, it's going to be a very long journey with the British public, and it's going to take quite a lot of contrition, I think, on behalf of the Sussexes. I don't think it's just a question of coming back to low-scale duties and then slowly building them up again. I think people will be looking for some acceptance of responsibility on their part for the state that they've come to. But faith leaders will no doubt have told the King that reconciliation is to be sought if possible, and I would agree with that if it's possible, but boy, what a journey.
Yes, but you have to sort of conclude that maybe anything's possible when you look at the journey of Camilla, who is now Queen, and I know there are people watching right now who still don't accept that and will never forgive her, but you probably have to accept that the majority of people do and have forgiven her. Mind you, she's never said a word. Unlike Harry. But maybe Harry has begun to recognise that this will be a long, slow process, and he might as well start it now, because it may take over a decade.
I think you make a very good point there, because Queen Camilla is really a lesson in reconciliation and in journey back from what would have been a very, very, very low point following the death of Princess Diana. But you also make the point there, and I think absolutely rightly so, that Queen Camilla has been extremely discreet. She has not gone public. She's not claimed other people are to blame for this. And obviously Harry has been very vociferous, as has Meghan, which is why I think there will need to be at some stage in this journey, and I stress a long journey if it's to happen at all, some significant degree of contrition from the Sussexes. Basically, in spiritual terms, repentance comes before restoration. And I think we must not forget that R, repentance, as well as the other R, restoration.
I just can't see how it's going to happen, because I can understand Harry coming back, because I think, bottom line, don't we still have some sort of love for him? But I can't see Meghan ever saying sorry, can you?
And that, I think you're absolutely right, because basically there are a number of what you might call walls that have been constructed on this road to recovery. And that will be, in many ways, the highest wall of all, and probably the most difficult one for the Sussexes to surmount. Yes, that's rather difficult to imagine, isn't it? But I think unless that kind of thing happens, this is not going to work at all.
It. I wonder what Royal Correspondent Charles Rae thinks of it. Charles, do you think we're being warmed up for some sort of definite campaign to rehabilitate Harry?
I just wish I knew what was going on, to be perfectly honest, because this story, and I have to say the two people who wrote this story are two very, very good journalists, who have got impeccable backgrounds. So there's no dispersions cast upon them. But this story comes up and asks so many questions about all this. Not least of all, Harry was in England last week at a memorial service for his late uncle. He was 10 feet away from William at the very least. And I didn't hear anything at all about him turning around and saying, William, I'm really sorry for everything that I have done and said about you, Catherine, my father, Camilla, nothing. And he does not need a PR or advice from friends. Some friends, as you quite rightly mentioned earlier on, who he has not been in contact with for 4 years. And the reason he hasn't been in contact with them is that Meghan has weaned him away from those people. So if he's talking to these people again, and I suspect it could well be people like his old friend Guy Pelly, or more importantly, people like Mark Dyer, who was an advisor to the boys when they were much younger and guided them through a very difficult period. But, you don't need PR advisors. You don't need advisors. You need to say sorry. How are you going to say sorry to William for everything that you've said about him, his wife, and all sorts of things? He's described his stepmother as dangerous and a villain. How do you get past that? Now, they keep on saying, and I have to say, this stupid title that they've given it, Operation Bring Harry In from the Cold. Well, clearly that's been devised in the newspaper office because, believe me, it should be Operation, just one word. Operation Harry would be fine. But you're telling us that he wants to come back to the country that he says is dangerous to bring his family to, come back to the country that he's still got a legal matter going on about his security in the courts. Where is all this going to come? He's got Spare, the paperback version, coming out in October. Oh, and goody, he's not putting any new chapters in, and he's not going to do any publicity for it. It's still going to be, again, the same sort of things that he was saying before.
Charles, how likely do you think it is that Harry is willing to say sorry? Because we're talking about reconciliation, but as you say, the relationship with his father, the relationship with his brother, the relationship with the great British public is going to rely, isn't it, on some sort of remorse from Prince Harry.
It is. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And realistically, rather than chat to all sorts of people you haven't spoken to for 4 years, sit down, write a heartfelt letter to all these people and apologise for everything that you've done. I mean, you highlighted some of the things that he's done. There have been appalling comments that he and his wife have made. And you're absolutely quite right as well. Where is Meghan in all this? Is she coming back? I am a very firm believer that Meghan will never set foot back in this country under any shape or form. So that means then, if Harry does come back, is he going to spend 3 months, 6 months of the year? Is he going to carry on flying backwards and forwards between here and LA? That's going to do his green credentials an awful lot of good as well. So there's all sorts of things. And they talk about, he could do some very low-key royal visits, like cutting ribbons. Well, I'm sorry, but cutting ribbons is a very important part of royal duties. It's important for the organisations whose ribbon you are cutting because you're giving them publicity. Not all of the royal stories get in the papers, but most of them do.
He's between a rock and a hard place, though, if you look at it one way, because if he started to apologise for things that were said, you could view that as betraying his wife.
True.
So it's almost like he is faced now. He's got to make a choice.
Yes, you're absolutely right. It will look as if, I mean, we know that Meghan doesn't really take many prisoners, and she's not going to be very happy if he starts apologising for all the sorts of things that were said on the Oprah Winfrey Show and everything else. But and I agree with you. I think he is in between a rock and a hard place. He is listless. He's wandering in a desert that he cannot find satisfaction with. He's just sacked another American PR. And I don't know how many American PRs that is they've got rid of or have resigned by themselves, but it's quite a lot. You're now looking at someone in the UK. Well, you don't need a PR to say sorry. No. You just say sorry.
But you can't. How can he say sorry? How can he say sorry, for instance, those allegations of racism against the royal family when it's his wife who said it?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, he's got to. I don't see how he can do it. I don't see how he can pull it off.
He can do it. And the big thorn of all this is, William, how can you possibly repair that sort of damage that you've got? And as I say, he was in England last week. We never saw anything at all about any closeness or a handshake or even a nod in each other's direction. That's how frozen it all is. And it's not going to get any better. Best of luck to the Mail and Pushes. And I have no doubt at all that they have spoken to people who would like to see Harry back in the royal fold. I'm convinced there's a lot of people who would want him back, not least of all the Spencer side of the family. They want Harry back again. They want him talking to William. They want him talking to his father. I understand all that. But whoever's going to do that job, it's almost a mission impossible.
Oh. Okay. Charles Rae, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much for your thoughts.
Yeah, it's very interesting that about the Spencer family too, because it is said that when he came back for that funeral, that it was very much a Spencer funeral because it was Lord Fellows who was married to Jane, one of Princess Diana's older sisters. And it is said that the two older sisters are the ones who have kept real contact with Harry. just in an attempt to just keep in contact with him out in Montecito, and they would desperately like to see him come back to Britain.
The
But
timing
again,
of it is interesting,
Yes,
though, isn't it? I mean, with this funeral this week, being in the UK this week, and also with Prince Harry turning 40 in September.
And with it being the anniversary of Princess
Diana,
Diana's
27 years yesterday, wasn't it? It makes you think perhaps he's reflecting on what has been, what he'd like the next 40 years of his,
How can
of his
he
life
not
to look
reflect
like.
on it? It's so sad that he's out there and no longer. And I just feel for King Charles, because it must tear at his heart. It's his son, after all.
Yeah. No.